Here is a couple examples of that. You did it. You shared the toy with your friend. That was kind and thoughtful. I might even add on to that to be like, that was kind and thoughtful. And I bet your friend will share with you next time. So it shows that that behavior has an impact on others and has an impact on our future interaction with that person. You did it. You helped clean up, clean off the table for daddy. That was kind and thoughtful helping. Um, you did it. You cleaned up your toy truck so that the living room is clean. That was helpful. So, because we, as think about having your backpack by the front door or the toys cleaned up actually helps out families. And I think it's important to point out for kids the connection about how doing or engaging in a behavior helps others. I always hated the phrase when my dad would say, well, do what I say, not what I do, because then we didn't learn why it was important to do the behaviors that we need to do. So again, a helpful hint with these three kinds of noticing activities is you may need to write these down and then just pick 2 or 3 behaviors that you're working on with your kid and then write them down and just work as a family to catch those positive behaviors. Typically, when you catch positive behaviors, you can cut challenging behaviors in half, which is a lot. This is not all the time, but I'm not talking about severely challenging behaviors, but just simple behaviors of helping out, picking toys up, hanging a coat up, those simple things that drive parents crazy. This can dramatically help. But write those phrases down, maybe put them on the mirror, and then about every other week you can adjust those as you go.
Okay, so here is some thoughts on counterproductive praise. And so, what is that? How can praise just not all be good? There is some things to just watch out for when you're giving that praise, and that's being too general. So as Brett was kind of saying, you want to be specific because sometimes when you're too general, that can feel kind of pressure on the child. And then the other thing is we don't want to focus on kind of judgment. Sometimes kids will say something like, oh, was I good? Did I do this right? And that kind of thing can cause some anxiety within kids and have them being really seeking outside approval. Which what we want is we want to build up, like Brett was saying, pour into their buckets and have that real confidence in themselves and to um, not be looking for outside approval, but really having that belief in themselves. And then praising only for success can devalue effort. So, like I was kind of talking on the other slide, we also want to praise for steps made and kind of progress. So maybe when you're doing some of those things that Brett says, even if they don't get it quite right, you can praise the effort that they're making, and that's going to help take those steps in the right direction. And the more that you do that and the more consistent that we are, the better luck that we're going to have with getting them to, say if it's for compliance or something like that, we'll have better luck there. And then sometimes we rely a lot on external rewards, which is not all bad, but those can become kind of meaningless over time if we're using those constantly. So we want to have kind of a mixture on that part. And then, as he was saying, sorry, Brett, we want to catch them being good. So that's one of the key things is when we have a behavior that they show that we are wanting, we want to catch that and be really focused in on that.
And I think what's important here is that counterproductive praise, I think doing your best to encourage your kids and use those noticing behaviors is probably extremely important. And then the counterproductive praise is something that's a little harder to understand as a parent, and I think I'll work with Beth on maybe we can do a small one more about counterproductive praise and what that might look like. But I think if you can do the encouragement and the noticing, that will go a long way. And one thing I like that Beth said was that sometimes you're going to notice effort or partial success with skills. If I think a lot about how kids learn how to walk, it can take months for a kid to be proficient from the time they start to crawl to the time they can run without falling over. And in that time, kids, early on will fall over maybe hundreds of times a day before they get to that point of being successful. And when kids are little like that, we encourage them, like, good job, and we're excited, and I like how you're trying, and you pulled yourself up. So when kids are trying to do their best with what they have, sometimes you're just going to encourage and notice small efforts. Maybe the kid didn't put the toy in the bucket, but maybe he picked the toy up and say, thanks for picking the toy up. Let me help you put that in the bucket. I call that approximation. So you're going to do small behaviors. Sometimes you have to break it down even smaller to get the behaviors going in the right direction, which is really important because you just don't all of a sudden go from 0 to 100 miles an hour with new behaviors. It takes time and practice.
Okay, so here's some things that you can do at home, and I would call these probably bucket filling activities too, but these are kindness activities that you can do. So one of them that you could do at home would be kind of a random act of kindness bingo, which is basically you make a bingo card and then you put in different activities in there, and you can come up with those or come up with those with your kiddo, and that could be anything that you would want. So maybe sending a letter to one of your family members or helping their sibling pick up their toys. It can be anything. And then once they get a bingo, then you can come up with, it could be a material thing, or it could be, hey, you could stay up 30 minutes later tonight. We'll let you go to bed a little bit later tonight, or something that means something to the child. Or, we can watch the movie for 15 more minutes. It can be anything. Another cute idea was sending a long distance hug, which right now I think would be pretty timely, being that we're distance from a lot of our family. In this activity, they had a string with like little hands on the end of it, and then they sent it to their family members. I know another thing is you can do some of this through, like your Google Hangout or Facebook Live or something like that if you're chatting with your family. Another thing that you could do at home that would be fun and easy is to do a paper chain of kindness. So when you're doing this noticing and the stuff that Brett has been talking about, you can write the things down that you've noticed that they've done with them and create a chain out of that paper, and you can challenge your kids, how long can we get this chain? And so that's kind of a fun and visual way to show kids, acts of kindness. There's a lot of kind of rock painting stuff out there. I know we have in town a Rock the Town and Hope page. There's a Great Falls Rocks page. And you could paint rocks with, encouragement on them or some kind of kindness phrases and hide those around, or make little bookmarks with encouragement on them. These are all just kind of simple ideas that you could try, and they do help a lot with that bucket filling and just more help you as a parent notice things, and then your child being like, oh, and making that connection like Brett was talking about. Some of this tangible stuff is really, really good for kids.
And I was thinking as I was looking at the slide that Beth sent over is, even when you sit down to do dinner together, Sometimes you can just talk about what's one kind or helpful thing that somebody in your family did for somebody else that day. It's just a natural opportunity to build that in as part of a family routine. And I think, and if you do that, trying to be specific for kids, like, because little kids will say, "Oh, they were nice to me today," and if you can get them to say they were nice to me today because they helped me pick up my toys, that is very specific and can help kids with that. Just linking those things together.
Yeah, the other thing too that I was just going to mention, and that works really well in classrooms, but also could work really well at home, is giving your kids jobs. Um, and it kind of shows kids that we're all contributing as a family to our house. So, and it's going to vary based on age on what kind of jobs you'll give your kiddo. So like toddlers could help fold washcloths. If you're doing laundry, you could all do laundry together and fold. Um, and yeah, sometimes you have to go back through and kind of touch up some of the work that they've done, but it really helps, the family work together and show how we're all part of making, our home life um, great and keeping our households moving. I don't have anything else, Brett. Do you?
No, nope. Well, thanks for joining us, and we'll